My son said it quietly, almost politely, like he was asking me to pass the salt. He didn't look angry. He didn't look ashamed either. He just said, "Dad, I don't think it's a good idea for you to come this Christmas." For a moment, I thought I had misheard him. I was sitting on the same couch I'd helped him move in years ago, the one I'd paid for when money was tight and pride was thinner than paper. The house was warm, decorated in whites and golds, everything carefully arranged to look perfect. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a showroom. I asked him why, even though I already knew. He shifted in his seat and told me his wife's parents were coming. They liked things a certain way. Quiet, refined, formal, he said, like it explained everything. What he didn't say was that I didn't fit into that picture. My hands were too rough, my stories too real, my life too visible. I nodded. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice or remind him of the sacrifices, the years, the checks written without hesitation. I stood up, grabbed my jacket, and walked out of the house I had helped keep afloat for half a decade. That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, staring at a stack of bank statements I'd never really wanted to add up. Every month, the same amount sent automatically. Mortgage, utilities, repairs, groceries when things were tight. I'd told myself it was temporary. I'd told myself family meant giving without counting. But something changed when my own son made it clear I was optional. By the next morning, I made one phone call. I canceled the payments. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn anyone. I simply stopped paying a mortgage on a house where I was no longer welcome. They thought Christmas would come and go like always. They didn't realize this year the silence I left behind was about to get very loud. The first day felt almost unreal, like I'd stepped out of someone else's life and into my own. No automatic withdrawal. No silent punishment draining my account while I smiled and pretended it didn't hurt. Around 10 in the morning, my phone lit up with her name. Lena. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask if I was okay. She went straight to instructions, crisp and impatient, like she was reading from a list. My parents landed too. Picked them up. Gate C, baggage claim 3. Don't be late. I held the phone away from my ear for a second just to make sure I was hearing a real human being. My son's wife, the woman who had just erased me from Christmas, was ordering me around like I was still on the payroll. "Did Daniel tell you what he said to me last night?" I asked. A tired sigh came through the speaker. "Richard, don't do this. It's the holidays. Let's not make it weird." Make it weird, as if being told you don't belong in your own family wasn't weird enough. "I'm not picking them up," I said, calm, almost gentle. Silence. Then her voice sharpened like broken glass. "Excuse me? I'm not picking them up," I repeated. "You'll have to find someone else." She laughed once, short and mocking. "So this is what this is. You're throwing a tantrum because you didn't get your way." I stared out my window at my small yard, the old porch light still flickering, the paint peeling on the railing. The kind of house nobody posted online. The kind of house that didn't impress anyone. But for the first time in years, it felt honest. "This isn't a tantrum," I said. "This is me finally hearing you." "You're being petty," she snapped. "My parents are guests. They're expecting respect." I almost laughed at that word. Respect. The thing I'd been paying for like a subscription, hoping it would finally be delivered. "You should call a car service," I said. "Or a cab." "You can't do this," she hissed. "Do you have any idea how this will look?" That was the truth, not how it would feel, not what was right, only how it would look. I ended the call before she could keep talking. At 2:00, while her parents stood at the airport scanning the crowd for the driver they assumed would show, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee I actually drank. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a servant. That evening, the pounding started. Not a polite knock, not a neighborly tap. It was a kind of pounding that says you owe someone an explanation, the kind that tries to push its way into your chest before it ever reaches your door. I opened it, and there they were. Lena stood in the middle like she owned the air. Behind her, her father, Cody, filled the porch with his anger, red-faced and shaking like he'd been waiting years for an excuse to unleash it. Her mother hovered beside him, chin lifted, eyes cold, dressed like she was still at a charity dinner. "What is wrong with you?" Cody barked. We stood there for an hour. An hour? Do you know how humiliating that was? I looked at him, then at Lena. "You humiliated yourselves," I said quietly. "I didn't promise you anything." Cody stepped closer, crowding my doorway. "You don't leave my family stranded. You understand me? You don't do that and walk away." Lena cut in, voice sharp. "You're acting unstable. This is why Daniel said it would be better if you didn't come. You create tension." That word again. Better. Better for who? I felt my hands curl into fists, then relax. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of seeing me break. "For 5 years," I said, "I paid your mortgage. I fixed your house. I kept your lights on. And last night my own son told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas." Catherine's lips tightened. "That's between you and your son." "No," I replied, steady. "It became your business the moment you decided I was something to hide." Cody's eyes narrowed. "You're going to regret this, old man." I held the door wider. "Get off my porch." They left, but their threat didn't. 3 days later, my sister texted me a link. "You're on the news." I opened it, and my stomach dropped. A headline called me cruel. A quote called me unstable. They painted me as a bitter old man who abandoned 2 elderly travelers during the holidays. They even mentioned a storm that never happened. I sat there reading it twice, then 3 times, feeling something shift deep inside me. They weren't just cutting me out. They were rewriting me. I didn't call Daniel. I didn't call Lena. I didn't call anyone to defend myself. Not yet. I printed the article and laid it on my table like evidence at a trial. Then I opened the drawer where I'd been stuffing receipts for years, the ones I told myself I didn't need because family shouldn't feel like bookkeeping. Mortgage confirmations, bank transfers, repair invoices, photos of the roof I replaced, the fence I rebuilt, the water heater I paid for when it died on a Sunday. Every line told the same story. I was not a guest in their life. I was a foundation under it. I stacked everything into neat piles and started doing math I'd avoided, month after month. The payments added up until the numbers stopped feeling real. 200,000, then more. The kind of money that could have fixed my own house, replaced my truck, given me a life that didn't revolve around being needed. I stared at the total and realized something. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing what I provided. That night, I didn't sleep. I wasn't angry the way people expect. I was clear like a man who finally sees a trick after years of falling for it. I opened my laptop and searched Lena's public page. She posted everything. The dinners, the charity events, the perfect table settings, the smiling faces. And there it was, just like an invitation written in plain sight. Christmas Eve dinner. 12 guests. I read the list of names and recognized a few. Neighbors who used to wave at me when I trimmed their hedges. Business people who shook my hand once and then forgot it. People who would read that article and believe it because it was easier than asking questions. I closed the laptop and stood up. If they want to tell a story, fine. But I was done being the villain in a lie I paid for. I showed up at 6 on Christmas Eve. The driveway was packed with luxury cars, the kind with paint that looks wet even when it's dry. Through the windows, I could see candlelight and moving silhouettes, hear the faint clink of glass and laughter drifting into the cold air. For a second, I hesitated at the sidewalk, not because I was afraid of them, but because I was standing in front of a house I'd helped buy and was now treated like a stranger to. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. Lena loved to brag that the neighborhood was safe, as if money itself was a security system. Inside, everything glowed. A long table dressed in red linen, crystal glasses, gold napkin rings, a centerpiece that looked like it belonged in a magazine. 12 place settings. Not one for me. Lena froze mid-conversation when she saw me. My son's face drained of color. Her parents stiffened like someone had spilled wine on their reputations. "Good evening," I said, steady. "I brought something for everyone." Cody started to rise, already forming an argument, but I didn't give him the room. I set a briefcase on the edge of the table and opened it. Paperwork neatly clipped. 12 packets. I walked around the table and placed one in front of each guest. Mortgage receipts, transfer confirmations, repair invoices, photos of the upgrades, dates, amounts, my name. The room went silent except for the soft rustle of pages as people started flipping through them. I'm not here to ruin dinner, I said. I'm here to correct a lie. The article you read left out one detail. I funded this life. For years. Quietly. And then I was told I wasn't welcome for Christmas. My son swallowed hard. Lena's lips parted, but no words came out. A woman near the end of the table adjusted her glasses and looked up at me like she was seeing a person instead of a headline. Is this real? She asked. It's real, I said. Every page. Every dollar. And if anyone wants to call the bank, the account numbers are there. That's when I realized something. I wasn't begging for a seat. I was taking my name back. Then Lena found her voice. Richard, stop, she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're confusing everyone. This is private. Private? I asked. You made it public when you put my name in the paper. Cody slammed his palm on the table. You're trying to extort us. That's what this is. You're embarrassing my daughter in front of decent people. Decent people. The words landed with the same old poison. A man in a navy blazer cleared his throat. Daniel, he said carefully, is your father telling the truth? My son looked at the documents, then at the faces around him, then finally at me. His mouth opened and closed once like a door caught in the wind. Yes, he whispered. He helped us. Helped us. Like I'd carried a grocery bag, not a whole house. I kept my voice calm. I didn't come for applause. I came because some of you will hear only one version unless you see the receipts. I was called unstable, dangerous, a man who abandoned an elderly couple during a storm that never happened. One of the guests, a woman with silver hair and a posture like a judge, flipped to the highlighted sections. It says holiday storm, she murmured, but the forecast history for this week was clear. Another guest frowned at a photo of Lena posing beside a new kitchen mixer, her caption printed underneath, gratitude, blessings, little luxuries. Lena's cheeks reddened. That's not fair, she snapped. We had expenses. We were building a family. And I was funding it, I said, until I was told to stay away. The silver-haired woman set her packet down with slow precision. Lena, she said, you invited us into your home to celebrate family, yet you excluded the man who kept the roof over your head. The air changed. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet turning, like a lock clicking into place. I looked at Daniel. This is the part where you decide. I said, do you keep pretending I don't exist, or do you tell the truth while you still can? Daniel's eyes flicked to Lena, and in that split second I saw the truth. He wasn't choosing between right and wrong. He was choosing between comfort and courage. Lena gripped his hand. Don't, she whispered, but the room had already heard enough. My son stood. The chair scraped the floor, loud as a confession. He looked at the packets, then at the guests. He did pay, Daniel said, voice tight. He paid the down payment. He paid the mortgage when I lost my job. He covered repairs. More than I want to admit. Cody scoffed. So what? Parents help their kids. The silver-haired woman answered for me. Not to the point of being erased, she said, and not to the point of being smeared. Catherine's lips tightened. This is indecent. Dragging family matters into a dinner party. You dragged into the news, I said. I brought the missing pages. Lena's smile finally shattered. You want money, she snapped. That's why you did this. I shook my head. I want you to stop treating love like a bill you can ignore and a person you can replace. A hush settled over the table. Forks rested on plates. The chandelier glowed above us like nothing mattered. Then a woman near the end of the table spoke, careful and shaken. I wrote that article, she said. They told me you abandoned them in a storm. They made you sound unstable. Every head turned. Lena went pale. The woman swallowed. I didn't verify enough. Seeing this, I need to correct it. Cody's voice turned hard. You will do no such thing. Her gaze didn't leave mine. Sir, she said softer, did you ever fix the roof at the Lincoln Community Center? I remember a man who brought food for the kids every Christmas. My throat tightened. I hadn't come for recognition, but it hit me like warmth in winter. I nodded once. That was me. And just like that, Lena's perfect dinner stopped being her stage. It became a room full of witnesses. Lena tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out thin and brittle. This is ridiculous, she said. You're all falling for performance. The journalist, Patricia, she'd said her name was, kept her eyes on the paperwork. It's not a performance, she replied. It's documentation. The silver-haired woman leaned back, arms crossed. If even half of this is true, it's exploitation. Cody stepped forward, voice lowering into something dangerous. You don't know this man. Patricia looked up. I do now, and I know a story when I see one, especially one built on lies. Daniel stared at the table like he wished it would swallow him. I didn't feel triumph. I felt tired. The kind of tired that comes after years of holding your tongue until it turns into a stone. I'm leaving, I said, closing the briefcase. I gave everyone what they needed. The truth. Do what you want with it. Lena snapped. You can't just walk in and destroy us. I paused at the doorway and looked back at her. You destroyed me first, I said. You just did it quietly. Outside, the air was cold and clean. I sat in my truck for a minute before turning the key, watching light spill from the windows of that house, listening to the faint echo of voices inside. They were arguing now, not about me, about optics, about what people would say, about damage control. The next morning, I woke up to a buzzing phone and a headline that made my stomach tighten. The same paper that had smeared me had posted an update, a new article, a correction, not buried, not hidden, front page. It didn't call me unstable anymore. It called the story incomplete. It mentioned financial records. It mentioned years of support. It mentioned family exclusion. And for the first time, my name was attached to the truth. I stared at the screen until my eyes stung. They could take Christmas from me, but they couldn't keep my dignity if I refused to hand it over. The backlash hit them fast. It started quietly like a leak behind a wall. A canceled RSVP here, a withdrawn invitation there. Then it turned into something they couldn't patch with a smile. Sponsors Lena loved to tag in her posts stopped commenting. Her social circle, the one that always felt like a private club, went cold. People didn't want to be seen standing beside someone accused of using an older man like an ATM and then tossing him out like last year's decor. Cody, who prided himself on being untouchable, began losing his seat at certain tables. Not literal tables. Boardrooms. Luncheons. Committees where reputations mattered more than resumes. And Daniel looked like a man waking up in a burning house, finally smelling the smoke he'd ignored. 2 weeks after Christmas, he showed up at my door, now in his crisp work coat, not with his confident smile. He stood there with red eyes and a face that looked older than it should. His hands were empty. No gift, no speech prepared. Can I come in? He asked. I stepped aside. He walked into my small living room and stared at the peeling paint, the worn furniture, the quiet that didn't pretend to be anything else. He sat down slowly, like his bones had turned to sand. She left, he said. I didn't ask who. I didn't have to. Lena, he continued, voice cracking. She took the kids. She said I embarrassed her. She said I wasn't strong enough. Her parents, they blame me. Everyone blames me. His throat moved like he was swallowing nails. Dad, I didn't know how bad it was. I knew you helped, but I didn't know how much. And when she said you didn't fit, I let her make that decision for me. I stared at my son, the boy who used to follow me around job sites, the boy who once built his mother a crooked bookshelf and called it perfect. What do you want from me, Daniel? I asked. His shoulders shook. Forgiveness, he whispered. A chance. I don't deserve it, but I'm asking. I felt something heavy pressed behind my ribs. Not hatred, not victory, just the ache of a father who never wanted to be his son's enemy. I can forgive you, I said slowly, but I'm not buying my way back into your life. He nodded fast, desperate. I don't want money. I want to be better. Then start, I said, not with words, with responsibility. Daniel wiped his face with his sleeve like a kid who'd fallen off a bike. He kept nodding, like if he agreed hard enough it could rewind time. I will, he said. I swear I will. I believed he meant it in that moment, but meaning it and living it were two different things. I leaned forward. You want to fix this? Then you do it where it matters. With your kids, with your choices, with the way you speak about where you came from. He flinched at that last part, because that was the wound beneath everything. He'd been ashamed of the life that raised him, ashamed of my hands, my accent, my truck, my small house. He'd let someone else convince him that polishing himself meant sanding me down until I disappeared. My mom, he started, then his voice broke. She'd be sick over this. I didn't correct him. I didn't soften it. She'd be heartbroken, I said, but she'd also tell you to stand up and be a man, not a puppet. Daniel stared at the floor for a long time. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a wrinkled envelope. I found this in a drawer, he said. Lena was going through papers. She didn't know what it was. I took it. He handed it to me like it weighed a ton. Maria's handwriting. I didn't open it right away. My fingers hovered over the flap, and suddenly I was back in a hospital room, hearing machines beep, feeling her hand slip away, promising her I'd keep our family together. When I finally unfolded the paper, my eyes blurred. It was a letter she'd written to Daniel years ago and never sent. She wrote about love that doesn't humiliate, about pride that doesn't look down, about the kind of man she hoped he'd become. And at the bottom, one line stood out like a spotlight. Never forget the people who held you up before you could stand. Daniel watched me read it, his face tight with shame. I forgot, he whispered. I folded the letter carefully and set it on the table. No, I said, you didn't just forget. You chose. He winced, but he didn't argue. That choice has consequences, I continued. And one of them is this. You're going to earn trust back inch by inch. Not by asking, by showing. Daniel nodded again, slower now, like he understood it wasn't a quick fix. Before he left, he looked at me like he was afraid to lose me forever. I'll come back, he said. If you let me. I didn't promise him comfort. I only promised truth. Come back, I said, and bring your actions with you. Weeks passed, not the kind of weeks filled with dramatic apologies or movie scene reunions. Just quiet time. The kind that tests whether someone truly means what they said when their eyes were wet and their voice was shaking. Then one afternoon, there was a knock. When I opened the door, it wasn't Daniel. It was my grandson. Small hands, a paper star clutched tight, eyes wide like he wasn't sure he was allowed to be there. His cheeks were red from the cold. He looked up at me and swallowed. Mom said we shouldn't come, he said softly. But Dad said I could choose. Something in my chest loosened. I knelt down so we were eye level. And what did you choose? I asked. He held out the paper star. I made this for you. I took it carefully, like it was fragile glass. It was messy, wrinkled, covered in crooked glitter glue. Perfect in a way nothing in Lena's house had ever been. You chose well, I told him. Inside, he wandered my small living room like it was a different world. He stared at old framed photos, at my worn recliner, at the simple Christmas decorations I hadn't bothered to put up this year. Do you have cookies? He asked, hopeful. I laughed, a real laugh, the kind I hadn't felt in months. We can make some, I said. He climbed onto a chair and watched me mix dough, eyes bright, asking questions the way Daniel used to. When the first tray came out, he insisted on shaping one into a hammer. Because Grandpa builds things, he said like it was a fact carved into stone. Later, Daniel arrived. No speeches, no dramatic entrance. He just stepped inside quietly, shoulders lower than before, eyes careful. He didn't try to hug me. He didn't demand forgiveness. He walked to the sink and started washing dishes like that was what he came to do. I watched him for a long moment. This wasn't apology. This was return. My grandson fell asleep on the couch with cookie crumbs on his shirt. Daniel covered him with a blanket without being asked. And for the first time since Christmas, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Not victory, not revenge. Hope. That night, after they left, I sat alone with a paper star on my table. The house was quiet, but it wasn't the same kind of quiet as before. Before, the silence felt like rejection. Now it felt like space. Space where something new could grow if it was cared for. I pulled out an old photo album and flipped through pages that smelled faintly of dust and time. Maria holding Daniel as a baby. Daniel on my shoulders at a 4th of July picnic. My wife laughing in the kitchen, flower on her cheek, pointing at the crooked bookshelf our son had built for her like it was treasure. I stared at her face for a long time. I'd spent years thinking love meant sacrifice without limits, that if I just kept giving, I'd never be left behind. But I finally understood something Maria had always lived without saying out loud. Love doesn't ask you to shrink. Love doesn't erase you. I taped the paper star onto the inside cover of the album, right beside a photo of Maria and Daniel. It looked out of place next to the older pictures, but it belonged there, a new piece of proof that the story wasn't finished. The next day, my phone buzzed again. It wasn't Lena. It wasn't Cody. It was Patricia, the journalist. "I'm publishing a full follow-up," she said. "Not for drama, for accountability. What happened to you? It happens to a lot of people." Quietly, I listened, surprised by how calm I felt hearing her say it. "I don't want revenge," I told her. "I just don't want my silence to be used against me anymore." She paused. "Then you're already winning," she said. After the call, I walked outside and stood under my porch light, the same flickering one I'd ignored for too long. I replaced the bulb that afternoon. A small thing, but it mattered because it wasn't about the bulb. It was about finally taking care of my own house again. And for the first time in years, I wasn't paying for a place where I wasn't welcome. I was building my own peace. The follow-up article hit like a hammer. This time, the headline didn't call me cruel. It didn't paint me as unstable. It didn't turn my life into a joke people could share at a dinner party. It called what happened what it was. Exploitation. Financial manipulation. Elder abuse wearing a designer jacket. Patricia included the receipts, the transfers, the repair invoices. She included weather records proving there was no storm. She included quotes from people who knew me long before Lena ever learned to pronounce my last name correctly. And something else happened. Something I didn't expect. People started reaching out. Old coworkers. Men I built houses with 20 years ago. Neighbors I barely knew. A woman from a community center who remembered my wife's tamales. A retired teacher who told me Maria once paid for a child's school supplies without saying a word. Message after message. "You didn't deserve that. I'm glad you stood up. Thank you for telling the truth." I sat there reading them until my eyes hurt. Meanwhile, Daniel's world kept collapsing. He called me one night, voice low. "They're selling the house," he said. "Who's they?" I asked, though I already knew. "Lena's parents," he admitted. "They're pushing it. They said the neighborhood is uncomfortable now. Too much talk." I almost laughed, but it came out bitter. They didn't care about family. They cared about reputation. And when reputation cracked, they fled like rats from a ship. Daniel swallowed. "I want to tell you, I'm not fighting you anymore. I'm not covering for them. I'm done." I believe him more than I had before, because his voice didn't sound like performance. It sounded like defeat. And defeat, sometimes, is where honesty begins. A few days later, he came over again with my grandson. This time, he brought groceries. Nothing fancy. Bread, eggs, fruit. He placed them on my counter, like a quiet offering. "I don't know how to make it right," he said. I looked at him. "You don't make it right in one day." I replied, "You make it right in the days you think don't matter." He nodded, eyes wet. "Then I'll start with today." And I realized something that scared me and relieved me at the same time. I didn't need him to pay me back. I needed him to come back. I didn't hear from Lena again. Not directly. But I heard about her the way you hear about someone who once controlled a room and now can't even get invited into it. Whispers, side conversations, the kind of silence that used to wrap around me now wrapped around her. Cody tried to fight the story. He made calls. He threatened lawsuits. He leaned on connections like they were weapons. But the paperwork didn't care who he knew. Numbers don't flinch when you yell at them. Daniel told me one evening, her dad said you ruined everything. I stared at him across my kitchen table. No, I said, I exposed it. They ruined it the moment they decided I was disposable. Daniel swallowed, nodding like he was finally learning the difference between blame and truth. One Saturday, he asked if he could fix something at my house. My porch railing had been loose for years. I'd ignored it because my energy always went toward their place, toward their emergencies, toward their comfort. He showed up with tools, not expensive ones, real ones, the kind that get scratched from use. My grandson stood beside him with a little plastic screwdriver, pretending to work too. Watching them together, I felt a strange ache, like grief and gratitude living in the same spot. Daniel tightened bolts, replaced a few boards, then stepped back and wiped sweat from his forehead. I forgot what this feels like, he said quietly, working with my hands. With you. I didn't tease him. I didn't lecture him. I just said, your mother would have liked seeing you like this. His eyes went glossy, but he kept working. Later, when we sat down to eat, my grandson climbed onto my lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. He held up a crayon drawing. 2 stick figures under a crooked roof. At the top, in shaky letters, it said, Grandpa's house. And underneath, always welcome. I stared at it until I couldn't see clearly. That was all I ever wanted. Not a chandelier. Not a perfect table. Not respect bought with monthly payments. Just a place where my love wasn't treated like a burden. The next time Daniel came over, he didn't bring groceries. He brought papers. He set them on the table like he was afraid they might explode. His hands trembled just a little, the way mine used to tremble when I'd open a bill I couldn't afford. We're selling it, he said. I looked at him. The house. He nodded. I told him no more. No more pretending. No more living inside a lie. I told Lena's parents they can take their pride and keep it. I'm done. There was a pause, thick and heavy. She's fighting me, he admitted. She says I'm choosing you over her. I leaned back in my chair. This isn't about choosing me, I said. It's about choosing your spine. He exhaled like the words hurt, but also relieved him. I know. He stared at the papers again. I can't afford it without you. And I won't ask you. I won't ever ask you again. That sentence, simple, honest, did something to me. Because for years, the asking had been wrapped in excuses, wrapped in need, wrapped in guilt. This time, there was no wrap, just responsibility. What will you do? I asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. I'll rent a small place. I'll start over. I'll pay my own bills. I'll rebuild, like you did. I studied him. Not the man who once tried to impress people with polished words, but the son I raised, the one who could take something broken and try to fix it. Good, I said. That's how you become a man your kids can respect. He nodded, eyes wet again. Dad, I'm sorry I made you feel like you didn't belong. I let the silence sit for a moment. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's a door you open slowly, checking the hinges. I did belong, I said. I just forgot it for a while. Daniel looked up, confused. I forgot my worth, I continued. But I remember now. And if you want to be part of my life, you don't come in as someone I'm buying. You come in as my son. His throat moved. I want that, he whispered. Then earn it, I told him, every day. He nodded like a promise. And for the first time, I believed the future might actually be different. Spring came slowly. Sacramento warmed up, trees bloomed, and the world kept moving the way it always does. Like it doesn't care who got hurt in December. But inside my house, something was changing, quietly, steadily. Daniel kept showing up, not once in a while, not only when he needed something. He came to help, to sit, to listen. He fixed the porch step. He repainted the peeling trim. He asked questions about my old job sites, about Maria, about the things he used to roll his eyes at. One evening, he brought my grandson again. The boy ran into my living room like it had always been his, yelling my name with cookie crumbs already on his chin. Daniel stood in the doorway watching him, and I could see it. Regret, yes, but also something new. Respect. We sat at the kitchen table while my grandson colored, and Daniel finally asked the question he'd been avoiding. "Why didn't you tell me to stop?" he said. I looked at him. Because I thought love meant enduring anything. I answered. And because after your mom died, helping you was the only way I still felt close to her. Daniel's eyes dropped. "I used that," he whispered. I didn't deny it. I didn't soften it. "I let you," I said. "That's on me too. I should have drawn the line sooner." He nodded slowly, like the truth was heavy but necessary. That night, after they left, I stood in my doorway holding the paper star my grandson had made months ago. The glitter was starting to flake off, but I didn't care. It reminded me of something real, something earned. I didn't stop paying the mortgage because I hated my son. I stopped because I finally loved myself enough to refuse being erased. And funny thing is, the moment I stopped by my place at their table, they finally learned how to set a seat for me. Not with money, with presence, with humility, with the simple act of showing up. The next Christmas, I didn't get a call telling me what time to arrive. I got a knock. Daniel stood on my porch with my grandson beside him, both of them bundled up, cheeks red from the cold. My grandson held a small wrapped box with two hands, like it mattered enough to be careful. Daniel didn't smile right away. He looked nervous, like a man stepping onto a job site he once abandoned. "Dad," he said softly, "we're not asking. We're inviting. If you want to come, we'd like you there." I studied his face, searching for the old hesitation, the old fear of what someone might think. But it wasn't there. His eyes were steady, honest. My grandson nudged the box forward. "It's for you," he said. I took it and unwrapped it slowly. Inside was a keychain made from a piece of wood, carved unevenly, sanded by small hands. On it, in burning letters, it read, "Home." Daniel cleared his throat. He wanted it to say something else too, but we couldn't fit it. "What else?" I asked. My grandson grinned. "Always welcome." I felt my throat tighten, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't fight the emotion. I let it sit there, warm and heavy. "I'll come," I said. Daniel's shoulders dropped like he'd been holding his breath for a year. That night, we didn't sit under chandeliers or crystal glasses. We ate simple food. We laughed. We told stories. My grandson climbed into my lap, like it was where he belonged. Daniel sat across from me, not performing, not hiding, just present. And when the evening ended, Daniel walked me to my truck and said something he should have said years ago. "Thank you," he whispered, "for loving me even when I didn't deserve it." I looked at him, my son, grown and flawed, and finally awake. "Love isn't a mortgage." I told him, "It's not something you pay to keep. It's something you live." He nodded, eyes shining in the porch light. As I drove home, I passed houses wrapped in lights and music, and for the first time, none of them felt like they were mocking me, because I finally understood the truth Maria tried to teach me all along. You don't beg for a place in a home you built. You stand tall, and you build one where your name is spoken with respect.